Hey everybody, Drummer Ruben here once again. Today I want to help you out with the assembly and setup of your electronic drum set. When you get your electronic drum set, it's probably going to look about like this. Everything's all in different pieces. Maybe you just got it out of the box or you just bought it used and you're like, how do I assemble all of this? Well, let me help you out. The first thing you're going to need is a drum rug. Now this one here is just like a mainstays rug from Walmart. It's like 20 bucks. And this is really the best kind of rug that I've seen for a drum rug. I wouldn't buy one of those expensive like rugs from Roland or one of the other drum companies because they overcharge for them. Spend 20 bucks on a decent rug from Walmart. The reason why you need the rug is because all of your pieces will slide all around while you're playing if you don't have it on a rug. So first thing to do is lay out all your parts and pieces like this. And we're going to assemble the drum rack first. All of these black bars here are parts of the drum rack. This is what's going to hold your whole drum set together. Now you will need a drum key in order to adjust this. Here's what that looks like. I have my own drum key here, which looks like this. It's a multi-tool with a drum key on the end. So whatever type of drum key you have, you're definitely going to need one to assemble this drum rack. This would mostly apply to any Roland drum set or even some other brands that have like a similar type of rack system. Firstly, you want to identify your left side. This is the right side. On this centerpiece, I have already attached all of the drum mounts on here. These are really easy to attach. It just has a wing nut and you slide these on here this way. What you're going to have is, if you can see it on here, there's a little tiny hole on the actual drum rack. This clamp right here holds the drum rack. I'm going to insert like that. And as long as you make sure that those holes are lined up with the gap in this clamp, this thing will stay straight. If it's not lined up, then it'll end up being all lopsided. So you want to get this pretty tight. Don't over tighten it because you don't want to strip out the clamp. Make sure this other hole is lined up with the clamp right in here. On this one, I can see that this leg right here is too short, and if I leave it like that, it's going to be like leaned over like this. So take your drum key, loosen the clamp on this leg, and then push it down until it seems like this is standing up straight. I'm going to have one bar right here in the middle. This is for the snare. And you have the snare mount on here. And we can adjust the height on that later. Now we're going to repeat the same process to put the left side of the drum rack on. So just look for the little hole right here on the rack bar and line that up with the gap in the clamp. Look to make sure it's lined up and then tighten your clamp. Now one thing that's really important is that the rack stands upright, like the legs are vertical and these arms going out on the left and right are perfectly horizontal, and it's not all leaning over or uneven. So now I can see that on this side, this leg is just about at the right height and everything is sitting pretty well level. Check it and see that everything is level. So you just put the little level on here. So it looks like the left side is a little lower than the right side. So what we're going to do is loosen this leg and raise it up a little bit. There we go. Now that looks more level. These are clamps that actually hold the pieces of the drum set in place. And you have these little holders right here that actually hold the wires in place. So with this drum set, I have two of those wire holders here, and then I have two Velcro pieces here that'll hold them across the middle, and then two more of those wire clamps on that side. The next part that we're going to put is the crash cymbal stands. Put one here. This is on a wing nut, so it's really easy to tighten it on there. There for your left crash cymbal. One right on this side. Also tighten that one up. We add on all the drum pads next. This particular drum set, all of these pads are the same, so it doesn't really matter as far as when you put the toms on. We'll have one tom here, second one here, third one here, and it can be any of these because they're all the same diameter. If you have a drum set that has different diameter on the pads, you're going to want the smallest one here, medium here, largest here, and then your snare pad, which on this one is actually larger. This is a good size snare pad on this Roland TD-07. It's going to go right here on the middle one. Yeah, I'll put these toms on. This has a wing nut. You just put this on here. Put this one on. And the third one on. And again, you can adjust the height on these things later. Add the snare drum on. Next part to add on will be the cymbals. On this drum set, it has two different size cymbals. The smaller size, the larger size. Smaller crash cymbal here to the left side. Make sure to put the felt on top. And then tighten this down just ever so slightly. You don't want this to be too tight where it doesn't move at all. The next part is going to be to add our drum module on here. This is where all your sounds come from. This one is the TD-07, but whichever one you have, you want to connect it onto the drum rack. Okay, now that's on nice and secure. Some drum sets do have a hi-hat stand like this. Others, the hi-hat just connects onto the rack and it doesn't really have this. You want to get one with a real hi-hat stand because that is a lot more realistic to an actual drum set than the type that has the separate pedal. You just put the hi-hat cymbal on like this. Push down the pedal just slightly and then tighten the wing nut so that this hi-hat can move up and down realistically. You don't want too much travel there, but just a little bit so that it feels like an opening and closing hi-hat. The next part is the bass drum or kick tower. This looks like this. All you have to do to attach this, there's a little clamp here at the bottom of the bass drum pedal. There's the clamp. Attach that right on. Make sure the pedal is centered on here. And then tighten this little wing nut right here. This is the part that'll slide all around if you're not careful with it. So what I usually do is add a piece of Velcro to the bottom here. This one actually has it right here. So this will really stick to this carpet really well, and it'll keep your pedal from sliding all around. Now the next thing you're going to be dealing with is plugging everything in. For that, you'll need this cable snake right here. This has one end like this, which will go into the back of the drum module. The other end is a bunch of separate plugs. Each one of these goes to one of the drums. So you have your drum module right here. Have my cable snake right here. Go around to the back of the drum module and you will see is a plug for that. You have to check and see which direction it goes. This plugs right in there. Then you tighten these screws and that is now secure. You take a look at the other end of this cable snake and it has all these plugs on it. How do you know the difference between what goes to what? Each one of these is labeled. This one has SN, which means snare. This one says T2, which is tom 2. This is CR, which is crash. This is HH, hi-hat. This is T1 for tom 1. This says KIK, which means kick, which is your bass drum. CR2 is the second crash cymbal. RD is ride for ride cymbal. Your crash and your ride cymbal is going to be the same thing. If you only have two cymbals, it'll be the cymbal on the right. T3 is tom 3, and HC is hi-hat control. Now let me help you get these plugged in. So here on the side of each drum, it has a jack to plug everything in. So let me show you how these go together. So the first one I'll plug in is the one that says HH for hi-hat. That's going to go into the top cymbal of this hi-hat, which is right in here. And then put your HHC one into this bottom section of this hi-hat controller. Now with this one, there's a little zip tie that's on here. I'm going to zip tie these two wires to the hi-hat stand so they don't flop all around when you're playing. So here's where I plugged these two in. HH here, HHC here. And every drum company has a slightly different type of hi-hat system, so it may not be just like this. If you have the one that just has the pedal on the floor and then the hi-hat separately, plug the HH into the actual cymbal, plug the HHC into the pedal, which will be down here. Now once we have the hi-hat all plugged in, we're going to take the rest of this cable snake and put it here on the drum rack. Take these little clamps like this, put it around the entire cable, and then clamp it right to the rack bar. Then we'll do that a second time. I have two clamps on each bar so that the cables are nice and secured to the bar. And I'm just going to do this all the way around. Now the next plug I have here is T1. That's for Tom 1, so that one's right here. So I'll just plug that right in. Then we'll take the rest of these and go around this way. Now there's a few that are still left on this side. That crash 1 will go straight up to this crash. Now what I normally like to do with the crashes is wrap the cable around the crash stand and then plug that right in. Here we have one that says SNR, that's the snare. That one's going to go over here to the snare. And again, I like to wrap it around just so that the wires stay nice and out of the way. And then one last piece here, which says kick. That's this one. And it's going to go straight over here to the bass drum. All right, so we have the hi-hat, snare, kick, and tom 1 and cymbal crash 1 all plugged in. Now we're going to come around here to the right side and plug everything else in. So here's the rest of my cable snake right here. This one should say tom 2, T2, right? Find out which ones are left here. So we have ride and T3 and crash. So we're going to go ahead and plug in tom 3. This is another one where I would go ahead and secure at least this one that's going to go to tom 3. I'm going to go ahead and secure it onto the drum rack with these little clamps. And then plug this in right here in tom number 3. And plug in the crash. This one actually has two inputs in here, if you can see that. And one of them should say crash, one should say ride. And that is very hard to see, so I'm probably going to go ahead and take that off. So this Roland crash cymbal is a crash ride. It has both functions. You can read on there, one of them says bell, the other one says bow edge. These are not labeled as such. One of these is labeled CR2, one of them is labeled RD. So I'm going to put the RD ride into the one that says bell, and then the CR2 into the one that says bow edge. If that doesn't work, or if it works backwards, then just switch the plugs. I'll put this cymbal back on here. Put the felt on and tighten the top. There's only one part left to put on, and that is the power cord. So that one's right over here. Just goes right here into the back of the module. Power right here. Plug this right into the wall. Now, one last thing you're going to have to take care of here is adjusting everything to the height of the person playing the drum set. I can see that the snare is a little bit high and angled up for me. So I'm going to adjust that first. The hi-hat looks like it's in a good spot here. Bass drum also is good. I can reach everything. It should be where you can sit comfortably, put your arms down to your side, raise up here, and you're just in the perfect spot to hit the drum. It shouldn't be up like this or down too far or anything weird like that. Same with the pedals. They should be close enough that you can comfortably reach it without reaching your legs way out like this or anything. Go ahead and tighten up this hi-hat. Now that can open and close. For me, this cymbal height is okay, but you can lower it a little bit just to make it easier to reach. Undo the wing nut. Put that down a little bit. Same thing on this side. And then I'm going to angle these toms down toward me a little bit. One thing you don't want to happen is have the toms actually touching each other. They can be close, but you don't want any of this stuff touching each other because it can do a thing called cross triggering where you hit this drum and this one makes a sound, or you hit one drum and something else makes a noise. And we don't want that to happen. The cymbals can be slightly over the drum, just the corner of it like this. Same with this one. And then we're going to put this tom down a little bit. And I'll lower it on here. Generally, this tom on the right side should be about the same height as your snare. And then these two should be angled down. These are called rack toms. This one's normally called a floor tom. And then your snare. So now everything feels like it's in a good spot for me. One thing you can do is these Roland mesh drum heads are tunable. So you can actually take your drum key and tune this up a little bit. Like the snare feels like really soft and really low pitched. So what I like to do is just tune it up a little bit so that it feels a little bit more realistic, like an actual snare as far as the amount of rebound it gives. But everyone has their own taste on that. Let's get some sound going. Right here on the back of the drum module, you'll see where it says output are phones. You just take your end, plug it in there. And the other one that says mix in, that's where you can plug in your phone or device to pipe music in through your drum module, and you can hear music and yourself at the same time. So this output, I'm putting it out to a amp, but you can also just use headphones if you prefer that. So there you have it. Everything's all plugged in and ready to play. Now I just realized this one is actually plugged in wrong. So turn off the power here, take this off, and switch those plugs around. So I just put them in the opposite one that they're already in. Put this back on and it should function properly. All right, so now it's working right. What you want is the bell sound when you hit the middle, and the crash sound when you hit the edge. So that's pretty much all you need to know about how to set up your drum set. If you have any further questions or comments, please leave it down below and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks very much for watching this video. Keep on drumming and rock on.